I want to talk about UK fulfillment and how you can do it well. However, as the accent might give away, I'm not really the right person to be talking to about this. So we've brought on an expert, Chris Matthews, the partnerships manager at Zatu Games. He knows a lot about how you can handle order fulfillment across the pond, and he spends his days helping out Kickstarter creators do exactly that. We're going to cut to the interview in just a minute, but real quick, my name is Brandon. This video is brought to you by Fulfillrite. We ship orders for e-commerce and crowdfunding. Link down there in the description if you need more information. Our quotes are always free. Now, one last quick note, we edited this video with a light touch because we like keeping our interviews lo-fi and honest and just like a couple of professionals on a Zoom call. Okay, let's cut to the interview. First of all, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time on a Friday afternoon to have this conversation with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So as I understand it, Zatu Games, right? Pronunciation is right.
Zatu. Oh, we get called all kinds of things.
which one's preferred?
Zatu is how we would say it.
Okay, I am glad I asked then. All right, so as I understand it, Zatu Games provides UK fulfillment services. At least that's what you said when you reached out. But I also noticed that it looks like you guys also sell games directly. So I'm wondering, what all do you guys do at Zatu?
Good question. Yeah, good question. We, if you ask most people in the UK, we've been known as a board game retailer. We're the largest independent tabletop and board game retailer in the United Kingdom now. So, we're coming for you, Amazon.
Nice.
But from the back of our retail business, we kind of launched into fulfillment, and we thought that, hey, we can do this, and we can do it well. So we reached out to the tabletop industry, sort of put a few feelers out there, did a few sort of test campaigns, and they went really well. So we launched that back in 2018, and it's been going strong ever since, and kind of growing as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. This is actually not the first time I've heard of a company starting by selling something else, building up the fulfillment operations in-house, and then ultimately getting into doing order fulfillment as well. And I think that's just an interesting trend that I've just seen kind of show up in the last handful of years. It's interesting to know that you guys fit into that as well.
Yeah, it kind of made a lot of sense for us. We were shipping out kind of 250,000 parcels a year for our own retail side, and thought, hey, we're getting great courier rates here. We've got all the picking and packing stations set up, ready to go, so we can handle peak periods like Black Fridays, your Christmas. Why don't we see if we can do this for other people that need our help, and ultimately save them money as well? Because if we're getting these great rates, we can just pass them straight on.
Yeah, it makes sense, because if you do enough in-house shipping, you have to have, you know how this works. You have to have all the labor to do this. You have to have the equipment. You have to have software. And it's like all of a sudden you've built a 3PL. If you've already built a 3PL, like why not sell that to other folks?
That's it. Yeah, we always started out doing our fulfillment in-house and our own logistics, even when we were sort of tiny, first starting out as a retailer. And grown. And so now we have kind of 2 warehouses, 25 packing stations, I think there is at last count. Some of them gift wrapping, some of them doing fulfillment work now. So it's, the operation's grown to be able to accommodate all kinds of different campaigns. We do e-commerce run rate fulfillment. Basically, if people come to us and want us to put it in a box and send it, we can do it.
Do you find that you do a lot of crowdfunding campaigns?
Yeah, crowdfunding is something, because we back them as a retailer. That was kind of where we first made the connection of, hey, we do this for ourselves and send out all these parcels. We can do this as well for Kickstarter campaigns. So it's kind of where we launched the fulfillment side of things. Never kind of look back. We still do lots and lots of large crowdfunding campaigns. And you guys all know the biggest challenge with crowdfunding is the fact that You never know when that campaign's going to come in. The stock's not in
Mm-hmm.
your warehouse. It could turn up at any point. The ship could be delayed. You could have customs issues. But then as soon as it arrives in your warehouse, you need to be ready to then send it out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, often a challenge with staffing. Because with a sort of a standard 3PL, they're set up to, it's set up ready for your run rate fulfillment. And you know when the busy periods are going to be. If someone runs a sale, it might catch you off guard, or a pre-order, it might kind of throw a few more orders into the mixture. But with crowdfunding campaigns, it can be, hey, we've suddenly got 3,000 orders to send out over 48 hours. So yeah, we've come up with ways to be able to deal with this. And the fact that we started with crowdfunding and we started with that side of the fulfillment has meant that we're set up for it, really.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of have a it's going to sound really cheesy and cliche, but and complicated, but it's not, I promise. We have what's called dynamic staffing. So we have a core team in our fulfillment side and a core team on our retail packing side. And then dependent on which area needs more work, we have people in the middle that are fully trained on both.
Mm-hmm.
And they can kind of float between the two. Although they'll hate me saying that because it doesn't do them justice as to how hard they work. But yeah, they'll kind of join each team depending on who needs it. So if we have a large crowdfunding campaign, we can pull people from the retail side of things, and then if we have, for example, Christmas, it's all hands on deck. But if we have a busy sale, for example, for the retail team, we know that there's guys from the fulfillment that can kind of drop in for them.
That makes sense. And it's interesting the way you describe the issues that come with trying to fulfill crowdfunding on the fulfillment center side, not the individual side, because it's quite difficult to explain if you're not in the business. But you basically you hit it right on the head there by saying basically you have to ship a whole bunch of orders and you have no idea exactly when that's going to be. That's hard to
That's
plan
it.
around, to
Mm-hmm.
have the staff and the equipment and the space and all this other stuff. And if you're not aware of it, it can be quite difficult. So to anybody who's wanting to get some help shipping out a crowdfunding campaign, it's really important to ask and make sure that the fulfillment center you're wanting to work with does that. Because a lot of them they either don't do that or they're not very familiar with the challenges that come along with that. It's just kind of one of those things that people need to be aware of when they're researching this stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot more elements than people think. I mean,
Yeah.
the bulk upload of orders. A lot of sort of 3PLs aren't set up for that mass upload of orders and different SKUs, and it can be a bit daunting. But like you say, I think the biggest challenge is that just that those peaks and troughs. You'll have one day where you have 5,000 orders, then you have the next day where you only have 500. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's tough if you're trying to run a 3PL and you're trying to run your staffing. And you're not set up for crowdfunding in any way. And you go, okay, we've got 5,000 orders. How do we get these out the door?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So can you give me just a brief overview of Zatu Games fulfillment operations?
Yeah, absolutely. We have, like I said, two large warehouses which run both crowdfunding and run rate fulfillment. I think, due to our background, due to our retail background, we focus on the tabletop board game industry. But we've done campaigns for all kinds of industries, healthcare, sort of regular fiction campaigns, fantasy fiction, all kinds of different things. So our warehouses are set up with enough packaging to be able to accommodate anything. One thing we always say, if it needs to get in a box safely and go somewhere, we can do it.
So you can ship a whole lot of different things. It seems like from the site, it's a lot of board games, cards, minis, Legos, that kind of stuff. And you had mentioned books as well, which all makes sense. That all kind of falls under that kind of media, like maybe geek culture is probably the best way to put it. But really, like if somebody had like small electronics or small home goods, would you be able to ship that out just as well?
Absolutely, yeah. lot of people look on the tabletop industry and think, oh, it's really easy to ship. A lot of the time, it's not, because if you get a board game and it's got a slight dink in the packaging, so the box, people are angry.
Yeah.
That's a piece of their furniture almost. It's something that's going to go on their shelves. I mean, like the shelves you got behind you. And if it's got a dink in the packaging, or it's come and a courier has damaged it along en route, that's it doesn't fly with the industry. So actually, going from board games and tabletop pieces like miniatures, for example, that are incredibly fragile, to other items that you can fulfill. For example, sort of small electronics or beauty or publishing books. Yeah, a lot of the time, the actual packaging that goes involved with it, we've already done it for board games, because we have to ensure that board game gets there with no dinks.
Yeah. Board games, I think, are probably like medium difficulty to actually ship out, because, okay, you put them in a box and you pad them right, and they're probably going to arrive in shape, but you have to do that. Like, you can't just put them in a poly bag and hope for the best, which sometimes will happen in some places, because ding corners, people get mad about ding corners. Some of these board games are upwards of $100 or more, much more in some of the cases of the bigger box games. And you're absolutely right that people get absolutely livid, especially with Kickstarter campaigns, because they wait so long when they don't arrive well. I mean, like, if you want to talk super hard, sure, fine. Cold chain, refrigerated, hazmat, fine. Okay. Fragile stuff. We occasionally, it's out of frame, but we ship out some dishes for the company CalamityWare as well. That's kind of tough too, because it's fragile. But I mean, board games are still medium. You want easy, ship a hat. Boom, it's in a poly bag, right in the mail.
Any item of clothing is an absolute dream. The only thing I'd say about that is the amount of different SKUs you've got, right? So if you've got, you've got one jumper, but you've got maybe 6-7 different sizes, and you might have male, you might have female. So all of those come with their own SKUs. So that it brings their own hazard, own kind of challenges.
Yeah, that's the only thing with apparel is a high SKU count. If you've got a low SKU count, like for folks listening, a SKU, like every time you have a different color, size, or combination of these things for clothes or any item, that's a different SKU. And so if you have like 3 or 4 different things that can be different, as is the case with clothing, one item can actually very quickly become dozens, which is very hard to arrange. Not every company will do it. But if you have like a low SKU count clothing, you're right. Very easy. Put it in a bag, send it out.
I mean, pickers hate clothing, packers love clothing. So you kind of have
that's the best way to put it.
Whereas, pickers love board games, packers maybe not so much. But then, like you say, when you're set up for it and you're ready to go, it's medium difficulty for sure. Miniatures probably verging on that harder front, especially if they don't come in their own boxes, because they're incredibly fragile. Often we'll get sort of miniatures and they'll have sort of a tiny staff in there, and you think, if that's not packaged correctly, if that's not got the right amount of protection in there from any movement, that spear is snapping. It's as simple as that. And that it's not then that the miniature's fine. That miniature's pretty much bust. Whoever picks it up at the other end is going to look at it and go, no, I don't want that anymore.
It doesn't matter if it's metal or a fancy kind of plastic. It's like you got one that'll bend, one that'll break, and either one of those is bad.
Yeah. It can be, especially if you're going to paint it and it's going to be part of your set. Like you say, people spend a lot of money, and we understand that. I think that's a big part of the fulfillment process. Is you got to remember that it's not your own brand a lot of the time that you're protecting; it's someone else's. So you have to be even more careful.
That's actually one of the things that we find over and over again comes up when people are looking for order fulfillment. So on our homepage, it says order fulfillment you can trust, and like. Now, in terms of copywriting, like that is a line we agreed on and we feel good about it and it tests well. But man, that's like such a hard message to sell, because you got to back it up with the testimonials and all that stuff, or else it rings hollow. But we find that the only way we can get away with something like that sounds like some honestly very basic copy, is because it resonates with people, because it's terrifying to send your inventory to another company and have them ship out on your behalf and be the face of your business when you don't have control. Terrifying when you
At the
for the first
last
time.
line before it gets to your final customer, whether that be a Kickstarter backer, whether it be someone that's purchased on your e-store, you are putting your business in someone else's hands. And I think a lot of 3PLs and a lot of Kickstarter fulfillment forget about that. Forget about that critical point. It's not your own business that you're shipping. It's someone else's and someone else's livelihood.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's a very scary thing. So I guess kind of related to that, what are some of the challenges that you face with fulfilling orders, particularly in the UK?
Yeah, I think the UK has definitely shot itself in the foot when it comes to Brexit. I won't go too much into politics.
I'm not gonna. I won't say a word. I'm an American. I have no anything. You can make plenty of cheap shots about us.
Don't worry, I won't go down that route. But yeah, no, we've definitely shot ourselves in the foot when it comes to Brexit. And I think even a lot of people who voted Brexit and were really kind of what we'd call hardcore Brexiters, they would probably say that it might be a mistake at this point in hindsight. And that's for a few reasons. But when it comes to getting stuff into the UK and out of the UK now, it is incredibly difficult. A lot of the time, people forget about customs. They forget about duties. In terms of VAT, if you try and send anything into the UK and send it to UK consumers now, unless everything's prepaid and paid up front, which costs you a fee, you have to be UK VAT registered. So you want to use a UK fulfillment partner. You want to use someone in the UK to send out orders to the UK. You think, oh, it's fine. I've already made those sales. They're already done. You've got to be registered for UK VAT. You've got to be, paying the UK government their money, which, sort of time's gone by. You could sort of ship in and out of Europe quite easily. There were kind of looser rules around Kickstarter VAT. It's not like that anymore. It's become much more of a hurdle that you can't just jump over. You have to take the time, really look into it, and make sure you've got everything right.
Yeah, and it seems like this is one of those things that people could really use a partner's help with, because you should not have to become a tax expert for different regions of the world when you are shipping a handful of orders there, or even a substantial portion of orders there. That's just not a reasonable thing to try and manage in-house. There are too many regulations, too many regions.
Yeah, you're dead right. And I think because of that, we saw that it was going to be a problem with, not necessarily a problem, but something that if you're not from the UK, you don't necessarily understand sales VAT, or you don't want to. I mean, you don't design a product, you don't come up and build a business in your kind of own country, the place where you've grown up, where you know everything, and then think, do you know what? I'm just going to become an expert on UK VAT just in case. It's something that a lot of people don't think about until they then have to, and they go, oh God, I really don't want to be doing this.
Yeah, so, and then you cram and you try and figure it out.
Yeah, and often the legislation and the guidance isn't very clear. As much as the UK government try and think they're trying to be clear, they're not.
No.
You'll read one website giving you one bit of advice, you'll read another giving you another bit of advice, and unless you've got someone there to go, actually, look, we've done this 100 times over. This is what you need to do, or you should probably go down this route. You can be,
it resembles U.S. tax code in a lot of ways, which is on my mind. It's April 12th, so the filing deadline in the U.S. is famously April 15th, which things are sorted on my end, so like we're all good there. But like it's a scary thing because like a lot of European countries, they'll have a return-free filing, which is basically, I think it's like, my understanding of it is it's basically all calculated for you. You just have to submit the payments. But here, what you have to do is basically figure out everything you've made and everything you've spent that is deductible from your taxes, bundle all this stuff together, get a bunch of forms from a bunch of sources, get that, and then get that all on a form, get it done right, and either pay for software or a person to do it for you. That's what it ultimately comes down to. It's like, you can now file on your own through free software that the IRS made just this year, available only in some states. And that's very, very new. That's very, very new. And it kind of
This is
reminds
just
me of
crazy
that
to me.
because it's very important to comply, but it's also, and it's not a thing you can get around, but it's sufficiently complicated to where, much like filing taxes in the US, in a practical sense, personal taxes, I mean, in a practical sense, you need assistance with it. Just, can you figure it out? Yes. Should you? Probably not.
It blows my mind when I hear you guys over in America talk about having to file your personal taxes.
Mhm.
In the UK, it is all sorted for you from a personal tax perspective. You literally you get your paycheck at the end of the
Mhm.
month, and it'll say this is the tax you paid, and that is it. There's no At the end of the year, if you paid too much, they give you a rebate back. If you paid too little, which sometimes happens and it happens and is horrible, and you have to pay a teeny bit more.
Mhm.
But most of the time, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Most rich person has never thought about their personal taxes in their life.
Yep.
Which, yeah, and what I don't get about America as well is oh, you have to do it all yourself. If you get it wrong, then we're going to fine you. So you know what my taxes are supposed to be. Like that's not fair.
Kind of is what it is. You learn to deal with it because it's just one of those
Yeah,
things.
yeah. If you have to deal with it, you just deal with it. But yeah, going back to kind of taxes for businesses in the UK is something that, like I say, for a long time, foreign businesses outside of the UK trading into the UK didn't even think about tax. Didn't have to think about tax. But since roughly 2021, the rules have become stricter and stricter. Paired with Brexit, it's just made it incredibly difficult.
Mhm.
And we've got in-house accountants that kind of give people a helping guide. One of our in-house
Mhm.
accountants is a VAT agent, so he's able to help, which makes a massive difference.
I'm curious, you guys charge additional for that service? Having a
We
custom
do,
agent?
purely for his time, really,
Okay.
because otherwise he could be doing our accounts.
Yeah, I assumed it wouldn't be free. But if it's a marginal upcharge, it's probably
Yeah,
good.
we only offer it to client like our partners and our people that use us for fulfillment, which I think makes sense. We're not looking to make a business out of that, which means that we don't charge an extortionate amount for it.
Mhm.
Um, like there's a lot of sort of agencies that you can use for UK taxes. You can do it yourself. It's like we said, you can figure it out and do it yourself. And that honestly, that's absolutely fine. We have a lot of partners that do that. But yeah, there are other agencies out there that do charge a fair amount.
Mhm.
It's quite expensive, so it's worth doing your homework and seeing what works best, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm looking at my questions list, and we've actually covered how, like, I think we've covered how you handle the surges in fulfillment and crowdfunding orders for holidays and campaigns, as well as customs and VAT. So I guess I'll just go ahead and skip down a little bit more. Um, so I'm curious, what comes next for Zatu Games? Do you have any exciting projects in the works?
Cool, $1 million question,
Yeah.
or million pound question, or £1 million question. Um, do you know what we're board gamers at heart.
Hmm.
We're like you said, we're all a bit nerdy around here as well.
Sure.
We would love to expand our kind of publishing side and have kind of some more self-published games. We've dipped our toes in the water and kind of done a few ones that we backed as a publisher, a few projects that we really love, and we'd really love to do that a bit more.
Yeah.
Not because we think it's going to make us a load of money and kind of we're going to be the next Amazon, um, but purely because we are massive nerds.
Honestly, that could be a lot of fun to do. And I'm sure that people probably already send you lots of pitches. Like, it's probably like you probably do get those. If you publish a little bit, you're going to get pitches. But I have to imagine that at least some of those are really promising when you do receive them.
Yeah, it's such an awesome part of our business. To be able to have those pitches and have people come and play games with us,
Hmm.
even if we don't take it on. It's lovely to see it from the very start, from that sort of initial idea, the forming of that idea, all the way through to it being received by backers or our retail customers.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's so nice to see that whole process. I think that's kind of why we want to be more involved with the start of it, because we just yeah we get to see that success, and that's great. Getting a game in someone's hand and then them really enjoying it.
I think
Um,
it could be fun for you guys to do a contest, like a game jam or something. See if you could have people develop it in like a very short period of time. See what kind of ideas come out. Um,
yeah, that sounds so cool. We've also had someone mention that we should do kind of like a Shark Tank and have like everybody in, and
you could
that
do
sounds way too serious and like way too serious for us. We'd much rather have a game where we just all play a day where we're all playing games,
Mhm.
and kind of pitching each other ideas and seeing what sticks. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that sounds so cool. Maybe we could do it. Maybe we could do an international one and do one in the US as well.
I did that on a small scale because I was making games before Fulfillrite and early into my work with Fulfillrite, but like on a very, very small scale. Like very, 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 very small scale, shoestring budget, homespun thing, to be very, very clear. But I had a Discord. I had enough members to have like some amount of community there, and we just kind of posted a prompt on the internet, and said like, okay, here it is. Here's the tweet. You've got 48 hours to make something around this idea. Got 20 something submissions, and one of them was like a ready-made game that the guy made not just in 48 hours, but he made one design, stopped it after 24, and then made a whole other design simply because he's like, this first one's not working. Cranks this thing
Whoa,
out like in the span of 24 hours, basically ready to go. Game mechanics were ready to go. Found a decent artist overseas to help us realize that, and then managed to bundle that together into something. And it was cool how that turned out.
that's so awesome. That. And did you progress that down did you do it on Kickstarter
Oh
or did you
yeah,
just
we
go
did it
straight
on
to
Kickstarter.
retail?
There's a Kickstarter called Tasty Humans. We ran it in 2019, fulfilled it in the normal part of 2020, like like the very first week of that year. Um, and yeah, like the one thing about it is I wish that on my end that we had done a better job. I'm talking my part because I was very happy with the art and the design and all that stuff. The only thing I wish I'd done was like a better job on the materials part so that the mechanics would
Mhm.
actually shine through. But
Yeah,
I didn't know enough at the time to be able to do that. But the
yeah,
contest thing itself was a lot of fun because designers always have these like really good ideas, and if you give them an excuse to kind of share them, you can turn that into a whole big thing and have some fun with it.
yeah, yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, I think in terms of future plans for Zatu, that's something that we'd really love to do. I mean, ultimately, if we grow and we can help partners grow with us,
Mhm.
that's what we're all about. We love seeing sort of success stories come through from
Mhm.
concept all the way through to fulfillment. And if
Yeah.
we can help with any of those steps, um, then we will.
You guys are in such a unique position with both the publishing and the fulfillment part because you can really tell people what it actually makes sense to put in a game from a supply chain standpoint, which is where a lot of the
Mhm.
good ideas kind of fall apart. How do you actually represent this with the materials? How do you actually make these things happen? But if somebody started with material specs and they were told these are your constraints, you must make a game within this for it to be cost efficient, I think in
Yeah.
some ways that might actually inspire people from the beginning. Instead of like churning through designs because they're not possible, you start
Mhm.
with like the what is possible, and maybe even some themes that are on target, and then people could just create something within that, and then probably crank out something that they're happy with pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there, there's things that we know that we are not good at. I am not creative in the slightest. I love board games. If you ask me to design one, I could sit here for 5 years, come back with nothing. I can promise you that. I would sit here and go, I don't know. I just, I might have a few cards that I could throw about, but that would be it. But then where you really get partnerships that shine is where you get people who can create, and then people that can kind of go, okay, right, let's see how this is going to work, and how is this going to move forward, and this is how the logistics are going to work. And people have their different strengths, and what they're really good at. And there's no point in kind of forcing yourself to do something that you know is not you. Know it's not your strength. You may as well focus on your strength, and then have people around you that can do their strengths, and put together you are this unit.
I think that's really the trick, because game design is deceptively complex. And I'm talking about the whole thing, like everything from the design and the development and the publishing and the materials and all that, because it's all got to work together. It's deceptively complex, but if you break it out and have different people doing different things, it's a lot easier to manage that way. And that way you can just spend more time doing what you really like.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, if you've created a board game and you're a creative type, you're maybe a graphic designer, or you're really creating the mechanics, you don't want to be talking about shipping. You don't want to be talking about VAT rules. You don't want to be talking about how is this going to fit in the box.
It's just like, tell me what I can and can't do, and let me do the things that I can.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, absolutely. So last question for you. Say that somebody is getting ready to do a Kickstarter campaign or GameFound campaign. How can Zatu Games help?
Where can't we help? I think it's probably more the question from what we've just talked about. I mean, that might sound really, big-headed, I guess. But no, we love partnering with people at any stage along the timeline. If someone's getting ready to do a Kickstarter GameFound campaign, we can advise on UK shipping, what you need to be able to get it to UK backers easily, cost effectively, and on time as well. I mean, one thing we haven't really talked about much on this call is actually getting things out on time. It's so critical for Kickstarters. When people have waited a year for the Kickstarter to be produced, which is understandable. Production takes time. Product development takes time. Your game development takes time. If it then gets to the fulfillment hub and takes 3 months to leave the fulfillment hub, or even 2 months, a month and a half, backers are just, we've waited, and now the games are in the country and we're still waiting. That's somewhere where we really think that people shouldn't have to wait. Once it gets into the country, we are ready to go. We're set up. We've got everything we need. Let's get it shipped.
Yeah, completely agree with you. I mean, once a game's ready to ship, ideally it should only have to wait a couple of weeks before it goes out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're quite fortunate in our setup that we are set up ready to go, and we get everything in our system in terms of backer data, in terms of product data. Everything is all set up. So as soon as those goods kind of enter our warehouse, we have an SLA of a 48-hour turnaround, which is, probably doable on a UK scale. I think if you look US, it's not doable, because campaigns are like 10 times the size in the US than they are in the UK. But yeah, there's, in terms of that side of things, absolutely we can help get things out nice and quickly. Post-campaign, I think we also really shine in terms of that jump from Kickstarter campaign to retail, UK retail especially, can be really tricky. And if you don't have the right connections and you don't know who to speak to, sometimes that's actually a stumbling point where you go, right, I've got it to all these backers in the UK. Now what? I wanted to reach more customers. I want to reach people that don't necessarily go on Kickstarter or GameFound. I want to sell via my e-commerce store. Well, we can help fulfill via e-commerce and do like that run rate fulfillment, but we can also then take it into our retail store, and you've got a direct relationship with a UK retailer on that front. So, for board game Kickstarter and GameFound campaigns, I think that post-campaign area as well is also a real area where we think, it just makes a lot of sense. I mean, the distributors in the UK are very, very different to distributors in the US. So chatting directly with retailers is always good. And coming to us for fulfillment and then being able to chat with us directly for retail, I mean, it's a win-win. We get good games and we're happy, and you get someone that you're able to sell to straight away. So
yeah, and having a distribution partner is it's such a good thing to be able to line up, because a lot of people think Kickstarter. Okay, well, I funded fulfillment, and then I don't know. I guess I'll make the next game. It's like, wait a minute, hold on. There's a whole other step here. And that's distribution. But it's hard to know where to go with that until you have the contacts.
Absolutely. And like you say, you kind of go to that point where you go, right, I've done all the fulfillment, excellent, move on to the next game. If you can do that and also have that link to distribution and retail, you know what, your first game will take care of itself, and then you'll be able to carry on creating your second game, and you'll just have this onward cycle of hopefully success. And that's kind of where we want to go with it. I think in terms of what else we can offer, we love partnering with global partners to be able to offer shipping around the world, because it's ultimately shipping UK to UK is easy. UK into EU is pretty straightforward. Shipping UK to the US or UK to Australia,
then not so much. Help. Yeah, it gets complicated.
Absolutely. So we're always happy to work in collaboration with hubs around the world, such as you guys. We've worked on projects together, and it makes things so much easier. And having that direct relationship with hubs around the world. So being able to speak to a hub in the UK and then being able to speak to a hub like you guys in the States, and then a hub in Australia, I've got a backer reaching out in Australia. I will contact my Australian hub straight away. I've got a backer reaching out in the UK. I'll speak to them straight away. You haven't got to go through a middleman. You haven't got to wait weeks for a reply. You can go direct to your contact. And I mean, I know you guys have a similar ethos to us. You come to us direct, you get a response direct straight away. We don't hang about on our emails.
Yeah. Oh no, that's a good thing, because again, it's terrifying to send off your inventory to another company, but getting the quick response makes people feel a lot better.
If you send all of this stock to a company and then you send the messages and you're not getting responses, you think, where's it gone?
Exactly.
What's happening? Is my fulfillment started? Is it ongoing? What's the situation? Yeah, you just that clear line of communication is absolutely key.
Absolutely. So, thank you very much for your time. This has been a good interview.
Thanks so much.
For anybody who's interested in finding information on either of our companies, all of that stuff is down there below. And while you're down there, please smash that like button. I hear that when I say that, it lights up. I don't know. We'll find out once this goes live. But in any case, please do that, because it helps us get seen by more people. Right? Thank you again. Thanks for watching this interview. I appreciate it, and I know that Chris does too. Details on both our companies are down there in the description, where you can find more information. And just in case you missed the name earlier, my name is Brandon. I'm here on behalf of Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping your orders for e-commerce or crowdfunding, go to fulfillrite.com and request a quote. We've shipped for thousands of companies, and we would be happy to do the same for you. The quote won't cost you a thing, so if nothing else, you'll get some good information on pricing. Link in the description. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Don't forget to slap some postage on that bell so that you can so that we can express ship new videos to you as soon as they drop. And last but not least, if you have any questions, please leave them down there below in the comments. I'll do my very best to answer as many of them as I can. Thanks for watching.